Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I was putting together an interactive online training module at my job, meant to walk existing employees through a new finance process we were rolling out. It had quizzes, sample scenarios to work through, the whole 9 yards. We'd recently gotten this new director of training named Jessica, who seemed to have clawed her way up the corporate ladder by stabbing others in the back. From what I could tell, she got promotions not due to her own talents, but because she was better at throwing mud on her colleagues than they were at her. It was almost impressive, like she had to be running some larger game beyond just typical office BS. I'll get to that. So after I finish the first draft, it goes out for testing and review as usual. A few minor tweaks get flagged, no big deal, but then Jessica just rips it apart, saying it's incomprehensible gibberish, claiming it needs to go into far more granular detail, questioning every single mouse click in the scenarios, the whole 9 yards. Here's the thing, though. This module targets our finance peeps, who already know the ins and outs of our systems. It's not meant to make sense to someone from a totally different background like Jessica, who came from teaching history to middle schoolers. I tried explaining this to her a million different ways, but she wasn't having it. So, begrudgingly, I had to go back to the finance experts with Jessica's laundry list of gripes. At first, they thought I was joking when I showed them her 20 pages of criticism. We ended up having to redo the whole thing, covering real 101 level basic idiot stuff like setting up email signatures and network drives, things folks in finance obviously already know. But Jessica was adamant we include all of it since she couldn't grasp the fundamentals. A total waste of everyone's time and energy. After recording all the new voiceover work and rebuilding the module per her ridiculous demands, I sent it back, and Jessica ghosted me, wouldn't respond to any follow-ups. A week goes by, and the finance head honcho wants to know why this project is so behind schedule. I went to forward Jessica's emails explaining the whole saga, but they were all just gone. Vanished. My buddy in IT did some digging and found that someone had done a shady compliance delete on the email server for any messages containing a specific phrase Jessica used, basically nuking any incriminating evidence. Well, that lit a fire under my ass. My IT friend recovered the deleted emails for me, and I started meticulously saving any communication with Jessica just in case. Had the finance experts do the same thing, wanted to see if there was really a deeper layer to this mess before blowing the lid off. Finally, after literal months of this back and forth, Jessica publishes and launches the new bloated 3-hour version of what was supposed to be a 30-minute module. An absolute chore full of pointless tangents and fluff that didn't need to be there. It was like designing a course on entering medical billing codes, but being forced to include lessons on the alphabet because what if the nurse can't read? The finance VP obviously hated this convoluted mess and couldn't believe I would put something so scattered together. He called a meeting to get to the bottom of it. That's when Jessica suddenly started pretending she had nothing to do with it, trying to throw me under the bus and say I ran wild on my own with all the extras. She kept talking over me every time I tried to defend myself, till finally the VP cut her mic so I could speak uninterrupted. That's when I played my hand, sharing my screen and showing her emails exposing her as the one who explicitly instructed me to build the course that way, regardless of how nonsensical it was. Jessica bailed from the meeting pretty damn quick after that. The VP asked me to send him all the files and correspondence. As I was doing that, I gave him a heads up about the suspicious email deleting incident from earlier. He said he'd look into it, and that's when the proverbial hit the fan. Jessica got canned, and one of the IT guys got fired too. Apparently they were having an affair, and the IT dude abused his admin privileges to cover their tracks when her stupid vendetta against me backfired. From what I heard through the grapevine, their spouses found out about the affair once an internal investigation kicked off. Last I checked, they're both getting divorced now too. Massive crap show all around. So yeah, now there's some major vacancies in leadership around here as the dust settles. IT is getting audited to their cores as we try to figure out if there were any other breaches or leaks. Perhaps if Jessica spent less time obsessing over me and more time obsessing over Excel, none of this would have happened. But she got way too tangled up in her own webs to claw herself out of the pit she dug. Had to learn the hard way, I guess. The next one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my suburban neighborhood for over 15 years now and absolutely love it here. The community is friendly, the houses are a decent size, and there's a real sense of togetherness among the residents. Well, most of the residents anyway. When I first moved onto the block, everyone was welcoming and kind. My next-door neighbor Jim even helped me move boxes on that exhausting first day. But a few years ago, Helen, who I not so lovingly refer to as Pool Karen, bought the house across the street. From day one, she rubbed people the wrong way with her arrogance and entitlement. The main source of tension stemmed from the community pool in my backyard. When I purchased the home, the previous owners included shared access to the pool for all the neighbors in the purchase contract. For over a decade, we had a wonderful arrangement where everyone pitched in for maintenance and repairs, and in return could enjoy a refreshing swim whenever they wanted. That is, until Helen came barging into the neighborhood. Despite never contributing a cent, she acted like she was queen of the pool, dictating ridiculous rules and scolding people over the tiniest of perceived slights. Her shrill voice boomed as she demanded people get out of her pool, if they so much as giggled too loudly for her liking. She had zero ownership rights, yet patrolled the area like an overzealous lifeguard. Her intrusiveness and lack of boundaries didn't stop there. Helen seemed to have no understanding of personal property, freely roaming into my backyard whenever she pleased. I'd be out gardening and suddenly catch a glimpse of her lounging on my patio furniture, uninvited and unwanted. When I confronted her, she'd huff and act offended, spewing excuses about just looking for my cat or checking if you got my mail by accident. After countless polite requests for her to respect my privacy went ignored, I finally installed a tall, locking fence around my entire property. But even that didn't deter Helen. One Saturday, I spotted her scaling the fence like a wannabe burglar, then plopping down on a pool float with a satisfied smirk. That was the last straw. I promptly announced that I would be revoking all neighborhood pool access at the end of the swim season. A unanimous vote, except for a certain shrieking Helen. True to my word, I had permits drawn up to permanently enclose the pool for my private use only. But before the construction crew could even break ground, I received a stern letter from a lawyer representing Helen. According to her, I was legally forbidden from altering pool access in any way. The threatening legalese went on to say I owed Helen financial restitution for emotional damages caused by denying her pool usage. I had a good laugh at the ludicrous demands, which clearly had no basis in reality. However, Helen's harassment did not stop there. She continued bombarding me with fake legal letters and violation notices on a near-daily basis. One week, I apparently owed her $2,300 for unlawful fence construction. The next week, it was $1,800 for unauthorized gardening. Her accusations and numbers were so absurd I didn't take any of it too seriously at first, but the increasingly unhinged correspondence started to become concerning. The last straw was the day I opened my mailbox to find a bill from Pool Karen to the tune of $5,000 for excessive breathing in her vicinity. The deranged note went on to claim that my very existence was morally and financially damaging. That's when I decided enough was enough. This woman was clearly off her rocker and her harassment needed to end immediately. I got in touch with a lawyer friend who helped me draft a formal cease and desist letter to Helen. I made it absolutely clear that I was the sole owner of the house and pool, and if she continued trespassing or sending fraudulent legal claims, I would take legal action against her. Well, that must have finally knocked some sense into old Helen. Her daily deluge of letters and bills came to an abrupt halt. For a few weeks, things were peaceful and quiet again in the neighborhood. No more shrill rants or wild accusations from Pool Karen. I happily spent my time relaxing by the pool without dealing with her nonsense. But of course, the silence was too good to last. Right after finishing renovations on the newly fenced and gated pool area, I came home one day to find Helen parked in my driveway, screaming profanities and threats. Before I could utter a word, she hurled a thick manila envelope out her car window, narrowly missing my head. As she peeled out with a screech, I looked down to see my name scribbled on the envelope in Helen's angry scrawl. I tentatively opened it to find a notice of lawsuit from none other than Pool Karen herself. She was apparently representing herself in court against me for, get this, inhumane mistreatment of a disabled person by building a fence around the pool. I burst out laughing, reading her demented list of so-called evidence against me. Things like, has failed to provide adequate nutrition and hygiene amenities, and refused access to shelter and living facilities. By this point, Helen's complete detachment from reality was crystal clear. I immediately got my lawyer buddy involved. He assured me her lawsuit was comically frivolous and had no legal grounds whatsoever. However, he helped me draft an airtight counterclaim highlighting her harassment, trespassing, and fraudulent correspondence. I even attached photographs of her scaling the fence for good measure. When the court date finally arrived, I walked in calm and prepared with an organized binder of evidence against Pool Karen. Meanwhile, she showed up empty-handed, only spewing more of her nonsense accusations against me. The judge listened quietly, his eyes widening at just how unhinged and entitled this woman was acting. In the end, the ruling was clear. Helen's claim was deemed legally insane and thrown out completely, and my countersuit highlighting her unacceptable behavior was granted in full. She was ordered to pay all my legal fees, receive a restraining order, and even sentenced to court-mandated therapy for her profound issues. The judge made sure to give her a stern warning that any violation of the restraining order or further harassment would land her in jail. Let's just say Pool Karen wasn't too happy about the verdict. Her face turned beet red and she started ranting at the judge about the injustice and how her rights had been violated. But the bailiff quickly removed her still shrieking form from the courtroom. And just like that, Pool Karen was finally out of my life for good. These days, my backyard oasis remains a peaceful sanctuary free of entitled Karens. The neighborhood muzzled menace now sticks to skulking around her own home after her colossal legal smackdown. And anytime I catch a glimpse of Helen glaring from her window, I just smile and give a friendly wave before diving into my private pool once again. The next one is a petty revenge story. I'm an academic researcher. I won this tech competition last year and started getting hate mail from a startup bro from my country who was probably just jealous because his team hadn't even made it to the finals of the same competition 3 years ago. Just my guess. He was now the CEO of a growing startup. The content of the hate mail was usually just insults mixed with explaining that I wasn't really good in my field and didn't deserve any acclaim. It hit the fan when he actually made the effort to attend a Zoom lecture of mine to hurl insults in the comments. That was embarrassing. I wanted revenge in a way that would prove my merit as well. I ordered his company's product, a special water filtration apparatus, and made some neat improvements to it which made it much cheaper. I found one of his close competitors who operates in the same region and gave the product to them in exchange for a payment and an advisory position. This was also a small company that was neck and neck with the dude who was harassing me. It's been 1 year and the competitor has almost fully dominated the market. I haven't announced my affiliation with the competitor yet, but I'm about to. I wish I can see his reaction live when he finds out I helped the competitor. The next one is a malicious compliance story. About a decade ago, I worked at a well-known bookstore as a seller of books. For anyone not aware, there were sections/duties that people were assigned to during shifts, and it changed frequently. It wasn't uncommon for shifts or duties to be swapped, relevant later in the story. There had been a recent change in management, and a fresh employee, let's call her Lexa, received a promotion to be an assistant manager despite having limited experience and quite the undeserved chip on her shoulder. Pretty sure she got the job because of her friendship with the departing AM whose position opened up. She was very much a delegator who spent a lot of time hanging out in the back office. I knew Lexa wasn't liked by a few of the veteran employees for the seemingly undeserved promotion. I was a part-timer going to school, so I wasn't invested in moving up or challenging the store leadership. Didn't make much of a difference to me. She and I got along just fine overall and usually exchanged pleasantries with bits of conversation. Until one day, I showed up to work, clocked in, and saw my department was kids. I hated working in kids as it was a Saturday, super packed. And the person who I relieved was terrible at cleaning up whatever section she was assigned to. I called up Lexa and asked her if I could switch with another bookseller, who liked working in kids, that also just clocked in. Before waiting for an answer, yes, partially my fault, I asked the bookseller if she would be cool switching with me. Lexa, hearing me ask this question, yells over the phone, "No, you were assigned to kids, so go to your section." I replied with a simple, "Okay." I go to my section, and as expected, it's a disaster. Books on the floor, kids running around, toys strewn about. It was exactly what I anticipated. I got right to work on recovering messed up shelves, making stacks of the books to return to their proper locations, and picked up toys/trash. I was a man on a mission. Wouldn't you know it, but apparently there were some shelves and furniture that needed to be moved around. I get a call on my store phone. It's Lexa, and she needs my help with said task. Mind you, there were enough people on the book floor to help if she also left the back office to get it done. Her tone was much different, and she sweetly asked if I can leave kids to go help with the project. Well, kids is a mess. I was diligently working just to keep up with the unrelenting entropy due to the Saturday afternoon crowd. Could I have helped? Sure. Did I have an excuse not to? Sure did. I firmly replied, "Sorry, I'm busy in kids." Nothing more, nothing less. The shift ended, and we went go to the break room post-shift. Lexa talks to all of us and mentions how we need to remember to work as a team. Her demeanor was mildly sheepish, and she avoided making eye contact with me. I sat there, staring right at her with a dumb look on my face, pretending I don't know she's indirectly talking about me. I did find out from a couple of friends she did help out, which required her actually doing some work instead of hiding out. We never had any run-ins after that, and she moved a couple of months later. In any case, I worked my assigned section like she told me to. On the bright side, I cleaned up kids and organized it so well that the kids' lead thanked me the next time we worked together. The next one is an entitled people story. 3 years ago, my mom passed away unexpectedly from a medical issue. Since this happened, I have been actively helping my dad as he is elderly and has health issues. Last year, his issues progressed, and I ended up temporarily moving in with him for a year to help out. I had left my job at the time and gave up my apartment. I was helping him full-time until recently. Within the last several months, he wanted me to be able to get back to my own life, and I wanted that as well, so I started looking at apartments. The arrangement was going to be that I would still go over to his house several times a week and be helping him with everything he needs, but trying to get full-time work separately so that my life isn't in total involvement with him. He was paying me a small amount per month when I lived there, nowhere near the amount a full-time caregiver would get. Because I had given up my job and everything to help him, he wanted to help me financially with the move, which I appreciated. So he said he would pay for the first month or two of my new apartment while I am job searching. Last month I moved into a new place I had found. Since then, I still am the one helping him 100% of the time. My sister, 34, lives 20 minutes away, but more times than not prioritizes her friendships, and the last time she helped him was on Christmas. In addition to that, he has a joint bank account that we both have a debit card to that is supposed to be for getting him things like groceries, etc. Obviously, I use it to get him things, but my sister is not currently helping him and has stolen from that account several times. Every time it has happened, she has told him it was accidental and then she'll pay him back, which she still has not. My dad is also a total enabler to her. She is extremely irresponsible about money and puts herself into debt, and even though she's not helping him right now, he gives her many handoffs financially. Recently, she and I got into an argument because she had owed me money from a lunch we went to, and she told me she could not pay me back and that it's not my money anyway, insinuating it's not my money because my dad is helping me out financially the first month of my move. I was extremely upset by this because I have been helping him full-time and asked for very little in return, and she has stolen from him and thinks it's okay to put any level of blame on me. My dad is still of sound mind. He also has a will that has been made up years ago. I know a lot of people in the last post mentioned me becoming power of attorney. The problem with that is that my dad is still making pretty conscious decisions financially and would not put me in that sort of position where I have that control, even though I am his caregiver health-wise. I believe he has everything legally worked out in case his health gets worse that my sister and I both would be technically making the decisions. A couple of days ago, I spoke to my dad and I very calmly laid everything out, and I said, "You are being stolen from. I have tried to tell you this many times, and at the end of the day, there is only so much I can do if you allow for it." He said he is not okay with her doing that, and sounded pretty adamant that he's going to require her to pay him back, and he appreciates me looking out. Exactly 2 days later today, I go over and my dad said that my sister called him, and he is actually going to be paying for her kickboxing class for the year, which I ultimately believe was her way of calling him to ask him for money just in a general sense, needing an excuse like an exercise class that she knew he would front money for. He had a totally different tone today than he had the other day. He sounded like a complete enabler towards her, defending her when in reality he knows that she continually steals from him. I am at my wit's end and I don't know what to do. I feel like in a way I am enabling by continuing to help him when he is making these decisions that ultimately are wrong and not fair, like we see in real time, the theft happening and him continuing to hand her money knowing it's happening. I feel burnt out. Obviously, since my move a couple weeks ago, I have been actively looking for a job and trying to distance myself from all of this. I have some regrets about giving up my original job to help him, but at the same time I thought it was the right decision at the time. My dad is very similar to my sister in that he has a very strong personality and can be a bit narcissistic at times. He is depending on me to help him 100% with a small amount in return while letting her steal and not help. I don't know what the solution is anymore, and I don't know what to do going forward. Obviously, it's ultimately his money, so if he decides that he is okay with being stolen from, there might be only so much I can do. What I can do is distance myself from helping if I feel like this is a really toxic dynamic, but obviously I have tried to still help him through everything because he is ultimately my dad. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.